Have you ever had a moment so humbling, so raw in its simplicity, that it forced you to completely reevaluate your life? For me, that moment came at my front door, face to face with a little girl in a green uniform, selling cookies. As I fumbled through my empty wallet, making excuses about why I couldn't afford a $2 box of Girl Scout cookies, the truth hit me like a freight train. It wasn't that I couldn't afford those cookies, it was that I couldn't afford my life. In that painfully honest moment, standing before the innocent eyes of a child, I had to admit something I'd been avoiding for years. I needed to change everything. Today, I want to share with you how that humbling moment led me on a journey from struggling to make ends meet in rural Idaho to discovering principles that transformed not just my financial situation, but my entire approach to life. More importantly, I want to show you how these same principles can create similar transformation in your life, regardless of where you're starting from. Before we begin, I'd like to explain the structure of our conversation today. I'll be using what storytellers call a mosaic narrative, sharing seemingly separate pieces of wisdom, experiences, and principles that might initially appear disconnected. But as we progress, you'll see how each piece fits perfectly with the others, creating a complete picture of transformation by the end. Just as a mosaic artist places individual tiles that only reveal their true beauty when viewed as a whole, these concepts will form a comprehensive philosophy for success when integrated. The foundational premise of everything I'll share today is simple yet profound. Your income and quality of life are primarily determined by your personal philosophy, not by economic conditions, your background, or even your current circumstances. This isn't motivational rhetoric. It's a principle I've seen proven countless times, both in my own life and in the lives of thousands I've mentored over the decades. When I say philosophy, I'm not talking about abstract academic concepts. I'm referring to the set of beliefs, attitudes, and approaches you bring to your daily life, your understanding of how the world works and your place within it. This philosophy shapes every decision you make, from how you spend your time to how you respond to challenges and opportunities. What's remarkable is that while external circumstances may vary widely from person to person, the principles that govern success remain constant. Whether you're in a booming economy or a recession, whether you start with advantages or obstacles, these principles work when applied consistently. My own story begins far from success. I grew up in a small town in Idaho, where opportunities seemed as limited as our family's resources. I dropped out of college at 19, not because I had big entrepreneurial dreams, but because I was failing and couldn't see the point in continuing. By my mid-20s, I was working a dead-end job, buried in debt, and living in a small apartment I could barely afford. What I didn't realize then was that my financial situation was merely a reflection of my philosophy, a philosophy built on excuses, limited thinking, and a fundamental misunderstanding of how value works in the world. It wasn't until I met a mentor who completely shifted my perspective that things began to change. Today we'll explore the principles I learned from that mentor, principles that are as relevant now as they were then. We'll discuss how to create value in the marketplace, how to learn effectively from both your own experiences and others, and how to develop the mindset that naturally attracts success rather than repels it. Most importantly, I'll share practical strategies you can implement immediately to begin your own transformation, no matter where you're starting from. Because the truth is, everyone has a Girl Scout cookies moment waiting for them. The question is, will you recognize it as the gift it truly is? Let's begin with the first piece of our mosaic, the recognition of need. There's a profound difference between wanting change and recognizing that you need change. Wanting is passive, a wishful state that rarely translates into action. Recognition of need creates an urgency that demands response. It's the difference between casually browsing fitness magazines and being told by your doctor that your lifestyle will lead to premature death. My own recognition came on that ordinary afternoon when I couldn't afford a box of cookies. I was 25 years old with nothing to show for it. No savings, no achievements, no direction. As I closed the door after making excuses to that little Girl Scout, something inside me broke. The carefully constructed narrative I'd been telling myself, that my situation was temporary, that external factors were to blame, that things would eventually get better on their own, collapsed under the weight of that simple interaction. I sat down at my small kitchen table and asked myself a question that would change everything. How long am I willing to live like this? Not just financially, but emotionally, intellectually, in terms of my contribution to the world. The answer came immediately. Not one day longer. This moment of clarity, this honest recognition, is the essential first step in any transformation. Without it, change remains theoretical, something you'll get around to someday. With it, transformation becomes inevitable. I see this pattern repeated in every success story. Steve Jobs had his moment when he was fired from Apple, the company he founded. Oprah Winfrey had hers after being demoted as a news anchor. J.K. Rowling had hers sitting on a delayed train, reflecting on years of struggle and unrealized potential. These weren't just setbacks, they were moments of recognition that demanded a complete philosophical reset. Your moment might not have happened yet, or perhaps it has, but you've chosen to ignore its message. Either way, understanding that transformation begins with honest self-assessment is crucial. As the ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." What makes recognition so powerful is that it shifts your perspective from external to internal. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can I do differently?" This subtle shift moves you from victim to creator, from passenger to driver in your own life. After my Girl Scout moment, I made a commitment to myself. I would find someone who had already achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I would learn everything I could from them. This leads us to the second piece of our mosaic, the power of mentorship. 2 weeks after my moment of recognition, I attended a seminar where I heard a man named Earl Shoaff speak. Mr. Shoaff had come from humble beginnings like mine, but had achieved remarkable financial success and, more importantly, seemed to possess a philosophy of life that resonated deeply with what I was seeking. After his talk, I approached him with what I now recognize was a mixture of desperation and determination. "Mr. Shoaff," I said, "I'll do anything you recommend. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever met. Please tell me what I should do to change my life." What he said next surprised me. He didn't give me a list of tactics or strategies. Instead, he said, "Young man, it's not about working harder. You're probably already working hard. It's about becoming more valuable. Success is not something you pursue, it's something you attract by the person you become." This concept was completely foreign to me. Up until that point, I had been taught that success came from working hard, saving money, and being frugal. Mr. Shoaff was suggesting something entirely different, that my income was directly tied to my value, and my value was determined by my personal development. He agreed to mentor me, and over the next 5 years, he completely transformed my understanding of success. What made his mentorship so powerful wasn't just the information he shared, but the way he shared it, through stories, questions, and real-world applications that connected abstract principles to concrete results. The right mentor doesn't just tell you what to do, they help you see the world differently. They challenge your assumptions, expand your thinking, and hold you accountable to becoming the person who can achieve your goals. As Isaac Newton acknowledged, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Finding your Earl Shoaff, someone who has already navigated the territory you wish to explore, can save you years of trial and error. It's the difference between having a map and wandering aimlessly, hoping to stumble upon your destination. But mentorship only works when you approach it with humility and action orientation. Mr. Shoaff told me early in our relationship, "I can tell you what to do, but the doing is up to you." Too many people seek advice but continue to follow their old patterns, effectively rejecting the very wisdom they claim to value. True mentorship requires openness, a willingness to question your most deeply held beliefs and practices. As the Zen proverb suggests, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. The question is, are you truly ready? Are you willing to empty your cup so it can be filled with new ideas? This brings us to the third piece of our mosaic, the philosophy of value. Mr. Shoaff taught me something that fundamentally changed my relationship with money and success. He said, "The marketplace pays for value, and the value is determined by need and difficulty. The more people who need what you provide, and the harder it is to replace you, the more you'll be compensated." This was a revelation to me. I had been focusing on what I could get rather than what I could become and give. I was asking, how can I make more money? When I should have been asking, how can I become more valuable? The market is remarkably fair in this regard. It doesn't care about your background, your excuses, or your intentions. It simply responds to the value you create. As management guru Peter Drucker put it, the purpose of business is to create and keep a customer. Everything else is a consequence of how well you fulfill that purpose. Consider the highest paid individuals in any field, whether entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, or professionals. Their compensation directly reflects the perceived value they bring to others. This isn't about raw hours worked. It's about the impact of those hours. The good news in this philosophy is that value can be developed. You can systematically increase your worth in the marketplace through skill development, strategic positioning, and most importantly, by solving increasingly significant problems. Mr. Schoaf outlined 3 components of value that anyone can develop. First, specialized knowledge, expertise that solves specific problems. The more specialized and in-demand your knowledge, the more valuable it becomes. Second, performance ability. Not just knowing what to do, but being able to execute at a high level. Theory without application has limited value in the marketplace. Third, relationship capital. The ability to work effectively with others and build networks that multiply your impact. As the saying goes, your network determines your net worth. What's powerful about this approach is that it puts you in control of your economic destiny. Rather than blaming the economy, your employer, or circumstances beyond your control, you focus on the one thing you can influence directly: your value proposition. I remember asking Mr. Schoaf once during an economic downturn when many were struggling, why certain individuals seemed unaffected by the recession. His response was illuminating. They've made themselves recession-proof by becoming so valuable that they're needed regardless of conditions. The economy isn't in trouble. People's value propositions are. This perspective shifts the entire dynamic of how you approach your work and life. Instead of asking, "What can I get for doing this?" you begin asking, "How can I make this more valuable for others?" The first question leads to entitlement. The second leads to opportunity. As you develop this philosophy of value, you'll notice something remarkable. Opportunities begin to find you. When you focus on creating genuine value, rather than extracting compensation, you become magnetic to the very success you once had to chase. This brings us to the 4th piece of our mosaic: learning from experience. Mr. Schoaf often told me, experience is not the best teacher, evaluated experience is. This distinction is crucial. Many people undergo experiences without extracting the lessons they contain. They repeat the same patterns year after year, wondering why their results don't improve. There are 2 ways to learn: from your own experiences and from the experiences of others. The first is valuable but expensive. The second is equally valuable but far more efficient. Learning from your own experiences requires conscious reflection. After any significant event, whether a success or failure, ask yourself these questions. What worked? What didn't? What would I do differently next time? What surprised me? What can I apply elsewhere? This practice transforms random experiences into systematic growth. The difference between someone with 20 years of experience and someone with 1 year of experience repeated 20 times is precisely this reflective practice. But personal experience has limitations, primarily the time it takes to accumulate. This is where learning from others becomes invaluable. As Mr. Schoaf put it, you can learn from 2 books, your own book and the book of others. Choose wisely which chapters you want to experience firsthand. Reading biographies of successful individuals in your field, studying case studies of both successes and failures, and directly seeking wisdom from mentors can compress decades of learning into months. This isn't about blindly copying others, but about extracting principles that you can adapt to your unique situation. I remember when I first started in business, I was making common mistakes that were costing me both money and confidence. Mr. Schoaf suggested I interview 3 successful people in my industry about the biggest mistakes they had made early in their careers. This simple exercise saved me thousands of dollars and countless hours by helping me avoid pitfalls others had already navigated. The willingness to learn from others requires humility, an acknowledgement that you don't have all the answers. As Isaac Asimov noted, your assumptions are your windows on the world. Scrub them off every once in a while, or the light won't come in. This approach to learning, combining reflective personal experience with studied observation of others, creates an accelerated path to mastery. Rather than random trial and error, you engage in targeted experimentation based on established principles, drastically reducing the time between starting point and desired outcome. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Direction is equally important, which brings us to the 5th piece of our mosaic, the architecture of goals. Mr. Schoaf taught me that goals aren't just wishes or vague intentions, they're architectural blueprints for your future. Without clear goals, your actions lack purpose and focus. As he put it, when you know exactly what you want, the whole world conspires to help you get it. Effective goal setting begins with clarity about what you truly desire. Many people set goals based on what they think they should want, rather than what genuinely inspires them. True goals create an emotional resonance. They pull you forward, even when motivation wanes. The science of goal achievement has evolved significantly since Mr. Schoaf's time, but the core principles remain unchanged. Goals must be specific enough to direct action, measurable enough to track progress, achievable but challenging, relevant to your broader vision, and time-bound to create urgency. Beyond these technical aspects, Mr. Schoaf emphasized something equally important: the alignment between your conscious goals and your subconscious beliefs. If you set a goal to double your income but subconsciously believe you don't deserve more or aren't capable of achieving it, your actions will sabotage your intentions. He taught me to write my goals daily, not just as a reminder of what I wanted to achieve, but as a way of programming my subconscious to recognize and pursue opportunities aligned with those goals. This practice, which I've continued for decades, creates a harmony between intention and action that naturally accelerates progress. Goals also create a powerful filter for decision-making. When faced with choices, you can ask, which option moves me closer to my clearly defined goals? This eliminates the paralysis of analysis that often delays progress. I remember sharing with Mr. Schoaf my frustration about lacking motivation for certain necessary tasks. His response changed my approach entirely. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Set clear goals, take the first small step, and momentum will build naturally. This insight, that clarity of purpose generates its own motivation, freed me from waiting for inspiration. I learned to create momentum through initiated action, trusting that emotional energy would follow once progress began. The architecture of your goals determines the structure of your days, which ultimately shapes the outcome of your life. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wisely noted, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Your goals must be translated into daily actions, creating a bridge between aspiration and achievement. This brings us to the 6th piece of our mosaic, the attitude advantage. Mr. Schoaf often said, "It's not what happens to you that determines your life. It's what you do about what happens." This principle places the power firmly in your hands, regardless of circumstances. Your attitude, your consistent emotional approach to life, acts as a filter through which you perceive events. Two people can experience identical situations, yet extract entirely different meanings and opportunities based solely on attitude. Modern neuroscience confirms what Mr. Schoaf intuitively understood. Your brain literally perceives different information depending on your emotional state. A positive, solution-oriented attitude activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for creative problem-solving. A negative, defensive attitude triggers the amygdala, the fear center that narrows focus and limits options. I witnessed this principle in action early in my career when the company I worked for faced a significant market downturn. While most of my colleagues focused on the problems, complaining about reduced commissions and market conditions, one team member approached the situation differently. He asked, "Who still needs our services despite the downturn, and how can we better serve them?" This simple shift in questioning led him to develop a specialized offering for a previously overlooked market segment. While everyone else saw their income decrease, his actually grew during the challenging period. Same circumstances, different attitude, entirely different results. Mr. Schoaf taught me that attitude isn't something you're born with. It's something you cultivate through conscious choice and practice. He recommended starting each day with purposeful attitude setting through questions like, "What am I grateful for today? What opportunities might present themselves? How can I add value to each interaction?" This practice of intentional attitude formation creates what psychologists call priming, preparing your mind to notice and respond positively to opportunities that might otherwise be overlooked. As Henry Ford famously said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." The attitude advantage extends beyond individual opportunities to your broader relationship with success itself. Many people subconsciously believe that success is scarce, that another's achievement somehow diminishes what's available to them. This scarcity mentality creates defensive postures that repel opportunity. Mr. Schoaf encouraged an abundance perspective, the understanding that success expands rather than contracts with participation. When you celebrate others' achievements and seek to learn from them rather than feeling threatened, you position yourself to receive similar opportunities. One practical technique he taught me was attitude rehearsal, mentally practicing positive responses to challenging situations before they occur. By visualizing constructive reactions to difficulties, you create neural pathways that make those responses more natural when real challenges arise. Your attitude doesn't just affect how you feel, it determines what you notice, what you attempt, and ultimately what you achieve. As psychologist William James observed, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind." This brings us to the seventh and final piece of our mosaic, the action imperative. Knowledge without application has no value. Philosophy without implementation creates no results. As Mr. Schoaf bluntly told me after several months of teaching me principles I hadn't yet applied, "Understanding is the booby prize. The real reward goes to those who implement. Action is where potential converts to reality. It's the bridge between knowing and having, between possibility and achievement. No amount of planning, study, or preparation can replace the learning that comes from direct experience." The most successful individuals I've encountered share one common trait. They maintain a bias toward action. Rather than waiting for perfect conditions or complete information, they take imperfect action, learn from the results, adjust their approach, and continue moving forward. Mr. Schoaf taught me a simple but powerful framework for consistent progress. Identify the next logical step, no matter how small, and take it immediately. This approach prevents the paralysis that comes from contemplating the entire journey at once. As he put it, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. I've applied this principle throughout my career, breaking ambitious goals into manageable actions that can be taken today, not someday. This creates momentum that naturally builds upon itself. Each small win increases your capacity and confidence for larger challenges. The action imperative requires comfort with imperfection. Many people delay action until they feel fully prepared, not realizing that the most valuable preparation comes from the action itself. As Mr. Schoaf told me, "You don't have to get it perfect, you just have to get it going." This doesn't mean acting recklessly or without consideration. Strategic action balances thoughtful planning with prompt implementation. The key is recognizing when additional planning serves as preparation and when it becomes procrastination in disguise. I remember feeling overwhelmed by a major business opportunity early in my career. The complexity and potential consequences of the decision had me stuck in analysis paralysis. Mr. Schoaf advised me to identify one small action I could take immediately that would move the process forward without committing me fully. This approach allowed me to gain clarity through action rather than endless contemplation. The relationship between knowledge and action forms a virtuous cycle. Action generates experience, which creates knowledge, which informs better action. Each revolution of this cycle increases your capability and results. Breaking this cycle, either by learning without acting or acting without learning, stalls progress. As we bring together all 7 pieces of our mosaic, recognition of need, the power of mentorship, the philosophy of value, learning from experience, the architecture of goals, the attitude advantage, and the action imperative, a complete picture emerges. Each element enhances the others, creating a comprehensive approach to personal and professional transformation. Now I'd like to offer you a practical way to implement these principles through what I call the Value Transformation Challenge. For the next 30 days, focus on systematically increasing your value in every context using these daily practices. Days 1 to 5. Clarify your philosophy by writing daily reflections on how you can provide greater value to those you serve, whether customers, employers, family, or community. Days 6 to 10. Identify and connect with potential mentors or learning resources that can accelerate your growth in your chosen areas of focus. Days 11 to 15. Define clear, specific goals in each major life area, with particular emphasis on how you'll increase your value proposition in each context. Days 16 to 20. Practice intentional attitude formation each morning, preparing your mind to recognize opportunities throughout the day. Days 21 to 25. Take daily actions, no matter how small, that align with your value creation goals, documenting both your actions and their results. Days 26 to 30. Evaluate your progress, refine your approach, and establish ongoing practices that will sustain your transformation beyond these initial 30 days. Throughout this challenge, remember Mr. Schoff's wisdom. For things to change, you must change. For things to get better, you must get better. Your external world will always be a reflection of your internal development. I began this conversation with the story of a humbling moment at my front door. A girl selling cookies who unknowingly changed my life by revealing the inadequacy of my philosophy. That moment of recognition led me to a mentor who showed me that success isn't something you pursue, but something you attract by the person you become. The principles I've shared today have transformed not just my financial situation, but every aspect of my life. They've done the same for countless others who have applied them consistently. Now it's your turn to take these mosaic pieces and create your own masterpiece of transformation. Remember, your income and lifestyle are direct reflections of your value to others. Increase that value through continuous learning, strategic goal setting, intentional attitude development, and consistent action, and everything else will follow naturally. Thank you for your attention today. Now go become so valuable that the world can't help but notice and reward your contribution. Your Girl Scout moment, whether it's already happened or is waiting just around the corner, isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your transformation. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more insights like these, and drop a comment below. Tell me how you're going to start increasing your value today. Let's keep the conversation going and build this transformation together.